Here we have an RD128. This is the latest type of ARB. We've taken this apart so you can have a quick look at it. There are the 8 springs on the flange nearest me. Those springs hold the piston locking mechanism into position. This is the later type, current RD138, which actually has a solid centre with the gears. It's about a 20mm shaft in there, so it's very strong construction. There is no plastic cage in this one like the earlier models. When you look at this one here, the other thing is that the plate that holds the unit itself is a stronger unit than the earlier castings, which, as you'll see earlier in this video, actually can break quite easily. So it's a much stronger. This is basically the gear that locks on the ARB, and as that goes round, there is a piston below this plate here, and if you apply air to it, that plate will fire up and lock in the locker. So now, as the piston drives this plate up, locking that ring, that's how the differential locks. Now this gear here, and this plate that comes up to lock it with the splines on, if you engage this when the engine's at high RPM and this is all spinning, called crash engaging, it can damage the tip of this gear and the base of this plate. Although all the manufacturers say you should engage it when you're stationary, no one ever does, but that is a definite area of wear, and that's not so much a fault of the ARBs, that is just something that if you do it as a driver, you're going to shorten its life expectancy. Putting the two halves together, this is actually held together with 2 little Allen keys here. These don't really need to be Loctited in because the crown wheel sits on top and locks them into position. They're really just to locate, and then obviously the bolts go through here and lock everything in together. And on this side, this is where the air goes into the system. The air goes in through here. Now this has a couple of O-rings that run around in a casing, which looks very much like this. Now these are renowned for leaking. They're also seriously expensive seals. They're silly money, about £7 each, and it's not unknown for these to actually leak straight out of the box. It is a matter of making sure that this doesn't end up damaged with grooves in, which is normally caused by a lack of fresh oil, or by people getting contaminated water and rusting, and then you have a real job polishing them up, because this seal fit here is absolutely finite, and if it's too much, you'll find your compressor just stays on continuously. There's no easy fix to get round that other than putting a new flange plate on, which is a hideous amount of money, enough to frighten a daredevil. This is the later type ARB, finally finished and put in its casing, albeit a pegged one. As you can see, the air line comes out of here and neatly runs over the top of the crown wheel and goes down the other side and out through here to the air, which has got to be one of the weirdest things to do, because if you're unlucky, this happens. Either you touch the pan with a rock and it moves in and slices it, or even with high revs, if this is actually set too close to the crown wheel, it's not impossible for this to move, and we've seen them when they've come back in here cut on the back. Similarly, if I zoom in here where the pen's being held, you can actually hopefully see where it's also chaffed up against the front of the casing. So not only do you have the problem of it rubbing up against the crown wheel, but it's not impossible for it to be so close to the diff pan that it actually causes that problem. So as you can see here, this is where it runs over the top and then goes down inside the casing and out to the airline. It is very difficult to set these up. You either set them so far away from the crown wheel that they're safe, that they get the diff pan, or too close to the crown wheel and they rub. Bear in mind, if you're using decent oil like EP90, this can be quite thick when it's cold, and it can actually move these pipes because they are only copper and they're quite soft. And that's the end of the RD128.